Welcome back, focused learners. Let's just jump right into today's explainer. Look, if you've ever poured your absolute heart, soul, and, countless hours into a design proposal, only to be met with a hesitant client who ultimately passes on the whole project, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're exploring a seriously powerful framework we found. It's basically a toolkit that transforms client resistance from a massive roadblock into a clear path for collaborative success. We're going to unpack the deep psychology of why clients push back and figure out how to turn those tense, awkward conversations into absolute wins together.
I mean, we've all felt the sting of a rejected design pitch, right? You walk into the room, you present this beautiful, logically sound, perfectly priced solution, and the client still balks. Okay, let's dive into this, because the real culprit here is rarely your actual design. It raises a really interesting, fundamental question. What if they're just scared? Usually that no you're hearing is driven by unaddressed client emotion, not some fatal flaw in your proposal.
Which brings us to Section 1, Why Clients Say No, and the Emotional Roots of Pushback. To fix this whole dynamic, we first need to examine those underlying psychological causes of client resistance that we, honestly, so often overlook during our pitches.
Because it turns out logic, fancy features, and price, those aren't the real hurdles. When your client is sitting across from you, they are secretly battling 4 major emotional barriers. We're talking fear of making the wrong choice, uncertainty about how this will impact their users, loss aversion, which is worrying way more about what they might lose than what they might gain, and finally, a lack of trust. Actually, fun fact, studies in behavioral economics show that loss aversion makes the pain of losing something literally twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something. So if you try to bulldoze past these emotions with facts, charts, and pricing tiers, you are almost guaranteeing a no.
And that brings us to a really fascinating foundational concept, the emotion-first principle. Basically, this means intentionally leading your client conversations by identifying and addressing those emotional barriers before you even think about moving on to your technical or commercial proposals. Think about it. When a client actually feels heard and emotionally safe, their guard drops. They instantly become way more receptive to your new ideas, and they're far more willing to take calculated design risks alongside you. So, moving on to Section 2, From Selling to Serving. This is a crucial paradigm shift. Adopting this emotion-first principle requires a massive shift in mindset, one that completely changes the entire dynamic of your client meetings.
Let's confidently contrast the outdated traditional selling approach with this new serving mindset. Selling is all about closing the deal, right? It's pushing features, hammering away at your value propositions, and aggressively pushing for a commitment. Honestly, it just creates friction. Serving, on the other hand, requires real curiosity and transparency. It's all about identifying client needs, actively reducing their perceived risk through small, incremental steps, and genuinely building trust. Serving means you are utterly committed to the client's long-term success. Even if, and this is key, even if that means you end up recommending a smaller scope or a phased delivery just to get them comfortable.
All right, Section 3, the framework. Identify, share, guide. So, how do we actually do this in the room when the pressure is on? Let's look at this highly actionable 3-part toolkit that lets us put this emotion-first principle into practice immediately. It breaks down into this surprisingly simple chronological process. Identify, share, and guide. Let's slow down for a second, because methodically mastering this exact flow is what turns the most tense, defensive client conversation into an active, collaborative partnership right there in real time. Step 1 is identify. Try using this exact phrase. I hear you. Tell me more about what concerns you most about this approach. Notice what this does. Instead of immediately defending your design when they push back, it invites them to speak. It really helps to just listen first without interrupting. Notice their tone, notice their hesitations, and critically, pay attention to what is left unsaid. Then, use open-ended prompts like that one to uncover their underlying fears. And actually name the emotion to reflect it right back to them. You're validating their experience. Once their fear is identified, we move to Step 2, share. And this brilliantly illustrates how simple this can be. You don't need a massive 50-page case study, you just need a concise micro case. For example, telling them, hey, we ran a 4-week pilot test with a similar client that improved engagement by 18%. By sharing a short, highly relevant example or a guarantee that directly addresses their core risk, you mitigate their fears using concrete, easily digestible evidence. Which leads perfectly into Step 3, guide.
You've validated their fear, now you offer a clearly scoped, low-risk path forward. Imagine laying out a pilot timeline like this. Week 1, you co-design the success metrics together. Weeks 2 and 3, you execute with a strictly capped spend. Week 4, you prove fast results. You're limiting their financial commitment, you're inviting them to define success as a team, and you're proving your actual value before ever asking for a massive budget. It's an irresistible offer, honestly, because it completely removes the risk that was causing their emotional pushback in the first place.
Let's shift the energy up for Section 4, handling common objections in real-world applications. Because, let's be real, even with the best framework, we are still going to face stubborn objections. So let's rapid-fire through the most common client hesitations and get you the exact armor you need for your next pitch.
Here are the exact objection handling scripts you need. When a client says, the cost is higher than we expected, the serving response is to explore a phased rollout. You ask them where the budget hits hardest and offer to spread the investment out while still delivering early value. Or when they say, we just don't have the internal bandwidth to implement this, you respond by including implementation support or a clear handoff plan for the first 60 to 90 days. Boom, you immediately neutralize their fears of budget constraints and implementation friction by offering a serving solution rather than arguing about price or just pushing harder.
Moving to Section 5, design team actions and equipping your agency. Because to pull this off seamlessly in a meeting, it can't just be one individual designer trying to remember a script. We really have to look at the strategic steps the entire agency needs to take to support this new framework on the back end.
These back-end preparations are absolutely crucial. First, you need to have those 1 to 2 paragraph case examples ready to go at a moment's notice. Second, pre-create a 1-page pilot template with your metrics and timeline already mapped out. Third, actively train your client-facing staff on this emotion-first listening. Next, go ahead and bundle those implementation support options so they are super easy to offer on the fly. And finally, meticulously measure your pilot outcomes so you actually have those micro cases ready for future pitches. Having these tools locked and loaded is exactly what makes that identify, share, guide conversation flow naturally.
So the crucial point is this simple loop. Identify, share, guide, repeat. This is a punchy, memorable mantra that you and your entire agency can loop continuously throughout your career. When you hit a wall of resistance, do not push harder. Just stop. Identify the emotion. Share a micro case. Guide them to a low-risk serving option. And repeat.
Let's leave on this thought. Think about your next big pitch. If you stop instinctively defending your designs and instead start genuinely validating your client's hidden fears, how much faster will they say yes? By shifting from selling to serving, you aren't just winning a project, you're building a foundation of immense trust. Take this framework, test it on your next call, and watch the resistance literally melt away. Keep learning, keep serving, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.